Again, I do think we should reiterate, based on I think, how we are all pointing out the language in this ruling. The breaking news is that Fani Willis can't stay on the case. She has not been disqualified. And if you want to get a sense of whether that's a win or a loss for her, it's Donald Trump's lawyer that slammed the judge. Our Kristen Holmes just reporting that Stephen Sadow said the judge did not afford appropriate significance to the prosecutorial misconduct of Willis. So Trump's legal team not happy with this. That being said, Ellie Honig, you've been pouring through this ruling.
So if I'm the DA, I'm taking this as a win. It is a win. She has survived. That is the most important thing here. I'd be breathing a sigh of relief. But Sarah earlier said there's some bruising involved. Wow, is there some bruising? Let me just give you the 7, I think, most severe lines, and these are really serious findings by the judge about the DA, and these are all verbatim from the opinion. First of all, there's a, quote, significant appearance of impropriety that infects the prosecution team. Second, a tremendous lack in judgment. Third, the unprofessional manner of the DA's testimony. Fourth, the odor of mendacity remains. I Googled mendacity. It means lying. Fifth.
Already new order. That's
right. Fifth, the legally improper speech that was made in the church that Laura just talked about, legally improper with the effect to cast racial aspersions on the defendants. Sixth, the DA has created dangerous waters for the DA to wade further into. And finally, and I think this is the most damning, there are reasonable questions about whether the DA testified untruthfully. Any one of these statements by a judge would be a career ender. For a normal prosecutor to have an on-the-record finding that there are reasonable questions about whether you lied under oath, that would be devastating. And we'll see what the political effects will be. The bottom line, the DA survives, but not without serious bruising, to use your analogy, Sarah.
All right, guys, so we got to get biblical in order to describe the cowardly decision made by Judge McAfee, the judge that was presiding over the disqualification hearing against Fani Willis and Nathan Wade for having an improper relationship that, if found in the court of law to present an actual conflict, would disqualify Fani Willis, okay? And again, the judge has finally ruled on this, and I'm pretty sure you guys all know what the result of the ruling was, okay? It was what I would like to describe a finesse. It was a WD-40 slick King Solomon split the baby decision, okay? If you guys are not familiar with the story of King Solomon in the Hebrew Bible, the judgment of Solomon basically goes like this. Solomon basically ruled that both women who claimed ownership over a baby, okay, two women came to him and said, hey, this is my baby, right? This is my baby. This baby belongs to me. King Solomon, instead of actually really, giving a solid ruling in regards to who the baby belongs to, he said, okay, I'm going to issue a split decision, right? I'm actually going to split the baby, okay? And that's how I'm going to make this decision, okay? One mother said, okay, I'm cool with that. And then the other mother said that, no, I'm not okay with that. I would much rather the baby go to my rival instead of splitting the baby because I don't want a dead baby, okay? So I'd much rather the baby live, even with a different mother, than for the baby to be split. And then at that point, King Solomon said, okay, I think that you're the real mother because obviously you have selfless love for this baby, okay? And I think ultimately he rewarded the baby to her. Okay, so yeah, this judge issued that type of decision in the sense that he issued a split decision, right? He tried to split it down the middle, but unlike King Solomon, he didn't get it right in the end, okay? He actually took the coward's way out because I believe that he's afraid of the woke mob, and he's up for re-election, okay? He knows he has opponents, and he's trying to save himself, okay, by low-key saving Fani Willis for now, okay, but also leaving her significantly wounded enough to open the door for her to eventually have the case fall apart, right? That's essentially what he did, okay? And I'm going to talk about it because ultimately he ruled that although no actual conflict was found, which would be the standard that he is using based off Georgia case law to disqualify Fani Willis, there is an appearance of impropriety. Yes, Fani Willis and Nathan Wade had an improper relationship that taints the legitimacy of the legal system, of the judicial system. So therefore, this impropriety must be resolved. And he gave Fani Willis the option to resolve it by essentially saying, look, you can stay on the case, However, you have to remove Nathan Wade, okay? But if you don't remove Nathan Wade, then you have to remove yourself and your office from the case. Clearly and obviously, Fani Willis is not going to remove herself to save Nathan Wade. Nathan Wade will be removed based off this judge's decision. But it's not over, right? It's not over because he essentially trashed Fani Willis so much that it has opened the opportunity for this case to fall apart in the long run. The judge just didn't want to do it himself because obviously he's trying to save his career, okay? He's a judge in an elected position out in Fulton County. I think that he was actually appointed to that position, so he's up for re-election. He has opponents in heavily Democratic Fulton County. Making the right decision in this case could have been the end of his career, okay? We all know he would have been smeared as a racist, a white supremacist. They would have said that his courtroom is basically a Klan rally, okay? They would have called him the grand psychops of the KKK that's out here trying to take down black women, okay, and punish them for their sexual choices. They would have said all types of crazy stuff about this guy. And again, I think that ultimately really did influence his decision. He tried to satisfy both parties, okay, without destroying itself. Obviously, that's what's happening, but I'm going to talk about exactly how he made this decision, okay, and his opinion in and of itself. I'm going to break it down for you guys. But before we get into it, I'm going to go ahead and play this news clip so you guys can get a better understanding of generally what is going on, and then we're going to get into the details of the judge's decision. Take a look.
Today, the judge in former President Donald Trump's Georgia election interference case has ruled that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis can stay on the case as long as Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade steps down.
That's right, but the ruling also means a trial is not likely to happen anytime soon, which itself is a victory for former President Trump, who would like this whole matter pushed until after November's election. Atlanta News First reporter Rebecca Schramm kicks off our live team coverage on these breaking developments. A busy morning, Rebecca. Fani Willis gets to stay on the case, but she is certainly facing a lot of hurdles now in this landmark case.
Yeah, that's right, Rick. You know, you were right. Defense attorneys will most certainly appeal the judge's ruling, which will drag out the case even more. But what the judge wrote in his ruling could provide ammunition for outside groups that want Fani Willis to be punished in other ways. In his order, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee, seen here in a previous hearing, acknowledged an appearance of impropriety, but he said he found no actual conflict of interest with District Attorney Fani Willis trying the racketeering case against Donald Trump and his co-defendants, despite her relationship with Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor she hired to lead the case. In his order, McAfee writes, "This finding is by no means an indication that the court condones this tremendous lapse in judgment or the unprofessional manner of the district attorney's testimony during the evidentiary hearing." McAfee did call out Willis for repeatedly making, quote, bad choices, noting that although she can remain on the case, she's not off the hook with other entities like the Georgia State Ethics Commission, the State Bar of Georgia, and the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, which have other sets of standards. He writes, reasonable questions about whether the district attorney and her hand-selected lead special assistant district attorney testified untruthfully about the timing of their relationship further underpin the finding of an appearance of impropriety. So how is Trump's Georgia attorney reacting? Steve Sadow posted a statement that says, in part, "We will use all legal options available as we continue to fight to end this case, which should never have been brought in the first place." Another thing we want to mention here, the judge in his order practically invites the defense to submit a motion asking him to require Willis to not discuss the case any further in public. So we fully expect that to happen. We'll be watching. We're live at the Fulton County Courthouse. Rebecca Schramm, Atlanta News First.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that, okay? You can clearly and obviously see from that news clip that this judge tried to finesse his way through this ruling, okay? Because, again, he understands the political consequences of his ruling. He tried to save himself while at the same time trying to trash Nathan Wade. Literally, I mean, he's trashing Nathan Wade from the case because we know that Fani Willis is not going to remove herself, while at the same time basically calling into question the professionalism, integrity, and competence of Miss Fani Willis, while kind of at the same time believing a lot of her testimony. in order to get to this decision of allowing her to stay, but she has to remove Nathan Wade while at the same time trashing her, right, and damaging her reputation, leaving her open, wounded to other entities coming in and potentially disrupting this case, which, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, even though we didn't get the disqualification, the good news is that there's going to be so many delays that it's definitely not going to happen before the election. And the whole point of this really is to happen before the election. So there's a lot to get into here, but what I want to really do for you guys is to break down exactly how the judge came to the ruling in layman terms so that you guys kind of understand the judge's logic. Again, this is not my logic. This is not my opinion. This is the judge's logic. And I want to explain it to you guys because it is pretty interesting to understand exactly how the judge came to this decision. And you guys can decide for yourself whether or not it actually makes sense. Okay, so with that being said, we have to start off with the actual standard, okay? Because the state argued that, listen, the standard for disqualification is not the appearance of impropriety. The standard is an actual conflict. Now, the judge indicated early on that, hey, the standard for disqualification could be the appearance of impropriety. But again, the state argued against that, basically saying, no. That's not actually what the standard is, okay? When the state in case law refers to appearance of impropriety, in cases where you had a DA that was actually disqualified, there was not only just an appearance of impropriety, but there was an actual conflict present, okay? So when we last picked up on the hearing, okay, that is what the state was arguing, and the judge had to decide which standard was he going to go with for disqualification. Was he going to accept that the appearance of impropriety was enough, or was he going to go with the higher standard of actual conflict? It seems that the judge went with the higher standard in saying, okay, well, if we're going to actually disqualify Fani Willis, there has to be an actual conflict present in order for me to do that. And then he ultimately found that there was no actual conflict. Now, this is how he found that there was no actual conflict. This is the judge's opinion, not mine, okay? But this is what he says. An actual conflict, okay, includes acquiring, quote, personal interest or a stake in the defendant's conviction. So I want you guys to understand that is the definition that the judge is using here in regards to what is an actual conflict. Now, what that means is essentially that the judge will have to find that Fani Willis would personally benefit or get some type of financial gain, or she has some stake in hiring Nathan Wade and then convicting Trump, that she would actually financially benefit. Now, the defense's method of trying to prove the actual conflict between Nathan Wade and Fani Willis revolved around the trips that Nathan Wade was taking Fani Willis on, where he was clapping her cheeks while also, going across the country, paying for these trips in which Fani Willis financially benefited. Okay, she received gifts, okay, in exchange for hiring Nathan Wade to go after Trump and to get a conviction, in which, again, she's now financially benefiting from that relationship and hiring Nathan Wade to go after Trump. Now, the judge ultimately found that although Nathan Wade took Fani Willis on these trips, it did not present an actual conflict because it is uncertain whether or not Fani Willis actually paid Nathan Wade back and whether or not the expenses were split roughly 50-50. Okay, basically what he said is that, well, Fani Willis didn't actually benefit financially enough to make it material, okay, in the sense that she only really got financial benefits of about $12,000 to $15,000, which apparently to the judge is not enough. Also on top of that, Fani Willis allegedly paid for tickets to Miami, plane tickets to Miami. So on some trips, Fani Willis actually paid. Now, in regards to the cash payments that, Fani Willis alleges that she paid Nathan Wade back, basically the judge says, well, although Fani Willis can't really prove that she paid Nathan Wade back, her story is not entirely unbelievable, even though we all know that there's no way that she paid Nathan Wade back thousands of dollars all in cash. We know it's ridiculous. She actually didn't pay him back. The defense can't prove that Fani Willis didn't pay Nathan Wade back, right? That's essentially his argument, right? It's basically ambiguous. He's essentially believing Fani Willis. He's taking her word for it in regards to her actually paying Nathan Wade back and splitting the expenses, okay? He also goes on to say that, well, she also was making a salary of $200,000. She's not in any significant debt. That would motivate her to have this type of conflict of interest, this type of financial arrangement in which she would try to benefit financially from hiring Nathan Wade. He also disputes the defense's allegation that Fani Willis was trying to prolong the trial in order to get Nathan Wade paid more, because Nathan Wade was getting paid by the hour. Okay, he was getting paid more by the hour than what somebody typically would get paid, right, for this type of case, and considering his experience. But despite all that, the judge says, well, Fani Willis clearly and obviously is trying to speed up the trial. Okay, she actually really is, because she wants to get it done before the election. She's trying to affect the outcome of the election. So therefore, there's no real conflict or attempt to try to get Nathan Wade paid more money, at least when it comes to hours or how long he's working on the case or prolonging the case, because she's not trying to do that. She's actually trying to speed up the case, which would get Nathan Wade paid less. And also on top of that, there were more recommended charges from the grand jury of other people that were allegedly involved, and she chose not to do that, right? She chose to actually go with a smaller group of people to go after instead of a larger group. Therefore, the judge is saying that, well, from a financial perspective, he doesn't really see how Fani Willis is benefiting, right? He doesn't see the actual conflict here, okay? Now, again, I'm not saying I agree with that. I actually don't agree with it. I think that the judge is being naive, because I think that it's obvious what the conflict is. It's the fact that she hired her boyfriend to do a job that he's not qualified for, okay? And then paid him more hourly than people who are actually qualified to do it, okay? And you know that he's not qualified by the fact that they're making very simple mistakes in regards to just trying to charge Trump properly, which is why the judge dismissed about 6 charges against Trump, because quite literally, I mean, they're making rookie mistakes, okay? I mean, they're that incompetent, okay? So, you know, I think the judge is being naive, but it's not even about being naive as much as just about he's trying to finesse this, right? He's literally trying to finesse it, okay? Because he finesses his way through the fact that it is clear and obvious they had a relationship before the trial began, okay, in which you could then say, well, the conflict is that, well, she hired her boyfriend is getting paid, therefore she financially benefits. The way that he finesses his way through that is by acknowledging that, yes, there is an appearance of impropriety. However, it's unclear. It's unclear when a relationship began, right? He didn't believe Terrence Bradley. He found Terrence Bradley to basically be useless, okay, because that guy who was supposed to be the star witness, he got on the stand and all of a sudden he got a case of the Joe Biden, right? He didn't know anything, okay? He couldn't say anything despite the fact that he sent text messages to Trump's lawyers, basically claiming to have knowledge of the relationship. And so apparently that worked on the judge, okay, as he found Terrence Bradley's testimony to be completely unreliable, right? He was inconsistent, non-responsive. So basically, you can't build any conclusions off this guy, right? He was useless. When it comes to Fani Willis's co-worker, he claims that although her testimony raises doubts about the state's assertions, it ultimately lacked context and detail, okay? And then he talked about the cell phone data as well, too. He's saying that, well, again, you can't really say for sure, even based off the cell phone data, that, you know, they were in a relationship before the RICO case began, even though I'm not sure exactly how you can be pulling up to somebody's house at 11:30 at night and leaving at 4 a.m. in the morning and not be in a relationship. You have over, like, 10,000 text messages, something like that, 2,000 phone calls. Apparently, the judge doesn't think that's enough evidence to say that they were, in fact, in a relationship, which, again, is kind of crazy to me, right? However, he says that, well, it seems like they're lying, right? Even though I can't say for certain, right? The evidence is not enough for me to say for certain that they lied, but it feels like they're lying, okay? Specifically, he says that Nathan Wade is lying, okay? He basically tries to pin everything on Nathan Wade, and he says, well, yes, there's the appearance of impropriety, which, according to Georgia case law, precedents, yes, that needs to be resolved because it diminishes faith in the court, in the judicial system. The way that we're going to resolve this is to give Fani Willis the option of removing herself plus her office or removing Nathan Wade, right? Removing the appearance of impropriety is the way to resolve this issue instead of dismissing the case altogether or forcing Fani Willis to be removed, right? That's essentially what the judge said, okay? I mean, he basically, said that it seems like they're lying, but I can't say for certain they're lying. Nathan Wade, he definitely hinted is lying more so than Fani Willis, which is funny to me because Nathan Wade and Fani Willis essentially told the same story. So how can you kind of say that Nathan Wade's a liar but not say that Fani Willis is a liar, right? Well, clearly and obviously he's trying to save himself. This was, again, a finesse, right? This was definitely a split the baby type of deal. And, he tried to basically save himself while at the same time trying to humiliate Fani Willis, because this is, legally speaking, humiliation for Fani Willis, right? And there's a lot of stuff in this ruling, even though it's not in the best case for Trump, obviously, that can be used against Fani Willis in multiple ways, whether that be the GOP investigation, the state GOP investigation into Fani Willis, okay, or maybe through the appeals process. There are a lot of things that can be used here, even in trial, to try to discredit Fani Willis, okay, as somebody that's not credible, as somebody that is corrupt. There's a lot of things that can be used here against Fani Willis, and it most certainly permanently damages her reputation, okay? I mean, she has been thoroughly humiliated throughout this whole process, in which there are ethical questions about whether or not Fani Willis actually lied under oath, even though the judge did not have the stones to say for certain, right? But he basically said, well, it seems like they might be, okay? But yeah, I mean, if the GOP has cojones, okay, if the legislature has cojones, they can subpoena those text messages between Nathan Wade and Fani Willis. And, clearly and obviously from just reading those text messages, you can see that, yeah, they were in a relationship. I mean, it's going to be super obvious, okay, that they were in a relationship if they can get their hands on those text messages. And then they could use that to prove that, yeah, she was in fact lying under oath, right? She did lie under oath about when the relationship began, evidenced by these text messages that basically definitely most certainly are going to show that, they was doing late night sneaky links, okay? And again, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not necessarily over, but there are multiple ways that this case could die by 1,000 deaths, or that Fani Willis could face some type of consequences in some way. We cannot forget that she's still basically under investigation for misuse of taxpayer funds at the federal level. The state level as well, too. They're investigating her. It ain't over yet, okay? It's basically going to come down to how much cojones does the GOP have, right? That's what it's going to come down to, which doesn't inspire much confidence, right? It doesn't inspire much confidence. And I think that maybe, just maybe, this could be, a part of the process of the case falling apart. I mean, I personally think that, for me, it's weird because it's like, well, clearly and obviously these people are incompetent. They're so incompetent that they can't properly even charge the individuals involved. The convictions so far haven't actually been real convictions. Okay, they've been kind of like fake pseudo convictions where the defendants are basically able to wipe away the conviction if they just do their probation and they don't commit any more crimes. It's going to be as if they weren't actually really even convicted in the first place. So again, the case in and of itself is weak. Fani Willis is clearly incompetent. It might be a W for her to get rid of a guy that wasn't even qualified to be on the case in the first place in Nathan Wade. Who knows, right? But ultimately, in the day, she's created some issues for herself. Her boohoo, whine, and crying racism in church, although the judge did not find that would be enough to disqualify her, again, it could be an issue. Okay? It could be an issue that comes up when it comes to the jury pool. There's a lot of things here to work with. And it could certainly be the case that the judge is trying to save himself while also trashing Fani Willis enough, wounding her enough that eventually this case will fall apart. He just doesn't have the cojones to do it himself, right? That, to me, is the sense that I get here, right? He basically said, well, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to wound her enough to allow other people to eventually take her down. I'm just not going to take the fall for it because, hey, I'm trying to get reelected. I don't want to have to deal with the mob. That is what I get from this, right? So, again, it's unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. It's not all bad. It's not what we wanted. But, again, it's definitely not the end. I mean, this is not good for Fani Willis. It is good, but it's also not good for her potentially in the long run. In regards to her main goal of actually getting a conviction before the election, That almost certainly is not going to happen. We'll see, though, right? We'll see. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.